Okay, so you should be able to, I would think that all of you can at least get quadrant 1. Now you need to know, you might have to convert an angle that is not the main ones we use on the unit circle. But the main ones we use on the unit circle come from special right triangles. So the first one is 30, the next one's 45, and then 60. So hopefully y'all can all do quadrant 1. I hope you've seen over the past couple of days how important quadrant 1 is. I think the next easiest thing to do is the middle one is always a 45-degree angle. So if I do 90 plus 45, that gets me this middle one. So what should this be? 135. And you can do the same thing all the way around. So this one's 225. And what's this one over here? Bass? What's this one?
315.
315. Now, I'll be honest with you, after that, sometimes I'm like completely lost. I can do this in radians like that, because I just split the circle up in like pieces and do it like fractions of a piece of pie, so it makes it easy. But at this point, I just have to try to go in and figure out what the rest of them are. I know that this angle right here is 30 degrees away from 90. So this one's 120. I know that this one is 30 degrees away from 180. And I kind of just do that all the way around in the circle. Okay, so degrees, because you guys are so familiar with degrees, that one's probably pretty easy for you. On the outside of the circle, we're going to put our radians. So it is also 0 radians with no little symbol, because remember radians don't have symbols, so it's just a 0. This one, if you need to convert, real quick, if you have forgotten, I'm going to go up here and convert this. 30 degrees, I need to cancel degrees, so that would put 180 degrees on bottom, pi on top. 30 goes into 186 times, so it ends up pi over 6. Now, your life will be easier and faster if you'll just memorize them, but you can convert, now that you have the degrees, you can convert all the way around a circle if you wanted to do that. In my mind, I just break everything into fractions. I know that these middle ones are always the pi over 4s. So if this is 1 pi over 4, straight up would be 2 pi over 4, that makes this one 3 pi over 4. 5 pi over 4 would be straight sideways. That makes, sorry, 6 pi over 4 would be straight sideways. That makes, no, 4 pi over 4 would be sideways. 5 pi over 4 would be down here. And I just do, each denominator at a time. You can do it however you want. But you need to be able to, when I give you a blank unit circle, you need to be able to put in all the degrees and all of the radians. I will not, at first, for a quiz, give you an entirely blank unit circle. I'll give you one that has some of the pieces filled in, and you just have to go in and fill in the rest of the pieces. But eventually, I will give you one that's entirely blank, and you'll fill it in. And it'll be a quiz grade, and you'll love it, because you'll have it, by then you'll have it memorized, I promise. Okay, so we said this one was pi over 6. That means this one has to be pi over 3, because that's the only one I haven't used yet. So now I'm just dividing my circles into, my semicircles into thirds. So that's pi over 3, this is 2 pi over 3. Straight sideways would be 3 pi over 3, because remember, it's pi. So it's 3 pi over 3, it's 6 pi over 6, it's 4 pi over 4, straight sideways. So if that's 3 pi over 3, then my next pi over 3 is 4 pi over 3. And the next one would be
the 3 next up.
And the last one that I usually do is 6s, and the reason I kind of wait till last to do that is because 6s and 3s go together. So this piece is pi over 6. This piece that's pi over 3, that's 2 pi over 6, right? 2 pi over 6 would reduce to pi over 3. So I have to remember to count those. So that's 1 6, 2 6, 3 6, This one back down here would be 6 over 6. So if I need to back up one, that means this has to be 5 pi over 6. And this one is 7 pi over 6. This here is 2 pi, which means if I back up one, this is 11 pi over 6. And then the only thing I haven't put on yet are the half pi's. Remember, all the way to 180 is pi. So if you just go halfway, that's pi over 2, or half pi. And then down here is 1.5 pi, or 3 pi over 2. Okay, so whatever method you have to figure out in order for you to be able to fill in a unit circle, if you need me to get you some blank ones so that you can practice, let me know. I'd be happy to do that. Now, flip it over. Yes, ma'am.
What was the
Pi over 2. All right, flip it over. On this one, we are writing just radians, and then we're going to talk about the ordered pair that goes with the radians. So, if you will now put the radians inside the circle. No degrees, just radians. See if you can do it without looking, without flipping over. You have to flip over, okay? But try it first without flipping. On this particular unit circle, they did not give you 2 blanks over here on the side, but usually I'll give you another one so that you can put 2 pi there also. Because it's not just 0, it's also 2 pi. It would also be 4 pi and 6 pi and however many times you go around. Is everybody okay? Okay, so now I'm going to teach you the left hand trick. So this is the way that we memorize, or that we remember quadrant 1. And if you can remember quadrant 1, then you know all the other quadrants. So this is the most important quadrant. So you take your left hand and you put it down upside down. Your pinky is 0. Your thumb is pi over 2, or 90 degrees. And these 3 fingers represent the angles in between. So this first one, my ring finger, is pi over 6. This is pi over 4, and this one is pi over 3. So now, whenever they ask you which angle you're looking for, you fold that finger in. So if they ask what the ordered pair at pi over 6 is, I take my pi over 6 finger and I fold it in. The number of fingers on top gives me the numerator of my x value with a square root symbol on it. So at this particular place, pi over 6, I fold it in that finger, and my x value is going to have a 3 on top with a square root over it. So I know it's going to have a square root of 3, and all of these values are over 2. Your bottom finger is always the y value. That makes sense, right? X comes before y, top comes before bottom, the way we read from top to bottom. So I have one finger on bottom. It square root over it. But what is the square root of 1?
1.
1. And they all have a 2 in the denominator. That works for all of the angles. So, for my next angle, this one in the middle, that's pi over 4, I fold that in. The number of fingers on top is my x value, with a square root symbol over it. So that's square root of 2, and they all have a 2 on bottom. The number of fingers on bottom represents my y value. Well, there are 2, with a square root symbol over it, and they all have a 2 on bottom.
Interesting.
Last one, pi over 6. Number of fingers on top represents the x value with a square root symbol over it. So that's 1. Square root of 1 is 1. And they all have a 2 in the denominator. And then the number of fingers on bottom represents the y value with a square root symbol over it. So that would be square root of 3 with a 2 in the denominator. Now, once you have quadrant 1, you really have the rest. Because remember, with radians, whatever is in the denominator, you just use that same thing. So 5 pi over 6 goes with pi over 6. So it has the same ordered pair. The only difference is, it is quadrant 2. And in quadrant 2, the x values are always negative. Remember this from probably 4th grade or so. This is positive, positive. That's negative, positive. This one's negative, negative. And this one's positive, negative. So as long as you can do that, as long as you remember the left-hand trick, you really know all of the ordered pairs. So this is going to be negative 2 square root 2 and positive 2 square root 2. Everybody okay? Any questions? Alright, so the only other thing we need to do is do our quadrantal angles. Those are the ones that end on the axis. So you just have to remember that the reason it's called the unit circle is because it has a radius of 1. So that means this point right here on the circle is the point 1, 0. So that would be the ordered pair here. This point on the unit circle that went straight up, it didn't go over at all, but it went up 1. So this is 0, 1. What would this one over here on the left-hand side be? Negative 1, 0. And then down would be 0, negative 1. Everybody good? So now real quick, just fill in the bottom so that you can get in the practice of doing that.